All right, welcome to class. Today we are going to continue to learn more about our standard by using a new tool called the CRAAP Test. It's not just a funny word, it is a useful tool that we can use to gauge how credible information is. It's a tool that we can use to examine all different types of information, from websites to books, journal articles, primary source documents. It's very, very handy. For the CRAAP test, it's basically an acronym, and each word prompts questions for us to ask about the source as we examine it. So I'll go over the acronym as a whole, and then we will go step by step through it to examine a primary source document. Does everyone understand?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So the first step in using the CRAAP test is to examine the source for currency. And quite simply, that means just determining how up-to-date the material is. You can check when it was published and determine, is it recent enough for your topic? Relevance is our second step. Relevance is about how closely the information connects to your topic. You can ask yourself, does this help me answer my question? Is it useful for my project, or is it something completely different? Third step is to examine the source for authority. Authority looks at who wrote or created the information. Are they an expert? What is their background? The fourth step is accuracy. Accuracy is about whether the information is correct. Look for facts and statistics and references. If you find a lot of mistakes or unverified claims, that may not be a reputable source. And then fifth, examine the source for its purpose. The purpose is why the information was created in the first place. Is it meant to inform you, persuade you, sell you something? Be careful with sources that have a lot of bias. So today we're going to practice using this tool by examining a primary source document that relates to our standard. So this is a letter written by a Finnish immigrant to California. As we go through it, you can use this tool, this rubric, to jot down your notes, okay? There's a section for each of the letters of the CRAAP test. On the second page of the letter that I just handed you, you'll see the English translation, but I wanted you to see what the original looks like. Okay, so when I was looking at it earlier, I noticed the date right away. It was 1906. That is when this was published, which told me that it's current enough for art purposes because it was written during 1906, after 1870, about immigration in America. Okay, then secondly, I checked it for relevance. I wanted to know, does it make sense for our topic? And I found that yes, it does, because an immigrant wrote this about his experience, so that's relevant. The third step that we'll explore is authority. What background does the author of this have? So I'm curious, Kirk and Ian, what your thoughts are.
That it was written by an immigrant in California.
Okay, right, and we already know it was written in 1906, so it's the right time frame. Ian, what do you think?
I think it applies very well.
Can you describe that a little bit more?
As Dad said, he's an immigrant in California. He's Finnish. So yeah,
Okay.
it applies very well.
Yeah, I think the point you made about him being Finnish is really valid because the letter described him being among the non-Finnish speakers, so that would kind of speak to a more broad experience that immigrants had in America when they came, is that all of a sudden they weren't surrounded by their own language anymore. Okay. For our next step of examining accuracy, I would like the two of you to talk together for just a minute about what you think, and then we'll have a conversation as a group. So we'll just set a timer for a minute. Okay. And now we're back. All right. So Ian and Jamie, Ian and Kirk, when you were discussing the accuracy of the document, what were some things that stood out to you?
I mean, it's very accurate. It's by a primary source because it's by the person itself in the 1900s. So yeah, it'd be pretty accurate.
Okay. So it's about his experience.
Yeah.
Okay, Ian, Kirk, what would you like to add?
Yes, the author writes about the truth about his experience.
Mm-hmm.
With the California earthquakes.
Yeah, he did mention that as well. And that's a verifiable fact that there was an earthquake at that time. Yeah. I think kind of a slight negative is that his personal reflections might not be completely unbiased, but it's still an accurate account of what he's experiencing and conveying to his friend. Okay. Now, lastly, we'll discuss the purpose. Again, I would like the two of you to talk for just a minute. Kirk, if you could work the timer, that would be awesome. And then we'll talk about it as a group after. All right, now we're back. So, Ian, can you tell me what the purpose of the letter is that you identified?
He wants to communicate the events of his experience with the earthquakes to the reader, which in this case is a friend named Hilma.
That's right. He was writing a letter to his friend. Kirk, what did you notice about the purpose of the letter?
So, personal letter from one person to another.
Okay. So it's kind of interesting because one of the things we touched on earlier was if it's biased or not. A letter doesn't really have to be unbiased because he's writing just from his perspective and what he thinks. And it's very emotional in nature. But in history class, which is what we are, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just because we're getting the insight of that one human's experience at that time frame. And we're able to learn a lot about his immigrant experience. We're able to kind of infer some push factors. We're able to kind of understand the assimilation process a little bit through his writing. So it's a really valuable source. Before we move on, I would like you to take a moment to jot down on your worksheets some thoughts that you had, because we will be using this as a model moving forward for an independent project. All right, any questions?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you.